Hello, everyone. We do a quick sound check to make sure that everybody hears us. So this is Couch Investor Neil with Chip Master Jose. Welcome, everyone.
What's going on, Neil? Can you hear me good? My little one's crying right now, so I don't know if that got through.
I can hear the little one, so I think the sound the sound is working. I think the sound is working.
He's mad he couldn't be on the live stream. You know, he wanted to watch us.
The special guest, for sure. So this is the first episode. It's going to be a 2-time thing. We first start with
2 times a week, not just 2 times ever.
Yeah. 2 times per week, 1 hour each time, and then as we evolve, we might expand to other days. Right now, we said Tuesday, Thursday, 12 p.m. might be 11, depending on some changes here in the administration. But yeah, all in all, it's going to be 2 times a week, every week, an hour each time. So it's not that long for those that missed the live stream.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's going to be pretty great, right? We're going to have 2 different kind of communities join us, and this be a perfect time to respond to any questions that we might have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. I think you bring a lot of value. Probably, the chip master here on YouTube when it comes to semiconductors investing, semiconductors in general. I think I can bring some value to that. Plus, we've got some tech companies we can cover as well. We thought today would be a good time to talk about semiconductors because of the volatility in the sector, the news that came out a couple of days ago. Plus, it's the start of a new year, so plenty of nice semiconductor companies that are good value, I would say, especially in the wafer fabricate equipment side of things. So could be a good episode to start the season.
Neil, there was a bit of an echo. I don't know if you want to unmute when I'm talking.
Yeah, we can try that. Or wait, I have an even better idea. Should be better. If we do like this.
Testing, echo.
Better?
Yeah, I think so. I don't hear myself anymore. And I hopefully chat can respond to make sure like echo is gone. But Neil, this is pretty good. I mean, you even have like a little banner going on. I think professional here.
Yeah, to be honest, I only found out yesterday that we can do these types of things like the banners. For example, free daily newsletter, whatthechipHappened.com. It's high tech here. The production is worth billions of dollars.
Exactly. We got the $1 trillion studio here, not the billion or $1 million studio.
Exactly,
we got $1 trillion. All right, Neil. So I don't know if there's any questions that the community might want to jump into. Any topics you want to start off with, Neil? I know obviously the title we a lot of stuff has been happening to semiconductor markets, at least in AI stocks, especially in the past 2 days. Anything you want to jump into first?
Yeah, I think we could start off with basically the semiconductor sentiment right now, especially after the letter from Nvidia with the export rules. We can also talk about the weakness in AMD and maybe the focus in AMD, because 12 months ago, AMD was not really that much in focus. Today it's down another close to 2% today at $115. Seems like a lot of people are much more interested in AMD than they are in Nvidia, believe it or not. And then we can maybe go into the ASMLs, the Lam Research, because those companies have gotten hit quite hard since the peak, let's say in March, April of last year. But it might actually be a good opportunity right now. There's a new administration coming in. Maybe export rules might change. Remains to be seen. So yeah, maybe let's start with Nvidia.
Yeah, I mean, Nvidia has had a lot of announcements in these past few weeks. I mean, we just came out of CES, right, Neil? And to be honest, Usually these CES, and whenever Nvidia talks, I feel is very boring. I feel everybody every day wants something new. But I think Nvidia, what it releases now is something like CUDA was in 2008, right? CUDA, when it came out in 2000, I believe 2008, I might have my years wrong, but when it released, it sounded like something boring, but it was kind of a foundation of what could be built in the future. And now here, kind of speaking in 2025, it has created this ultimate mode. So I think a lot of what Nvidia announced in CES was pretty more like that, was kind of a foundation build for something that they will be able to have a stronger moat in the future. I did enjoy their digits CPU GPU
Hmm.
combo product, but and anything you really enjoyed out of CES, Neil, from Nvidia?
Yeah. So at first, when I saw that little supercomputer that you could have on your desk, I was like, "Ooh, that's going to destroy a couple of billions of dollars worth for the rest, for AMD, for Intel." But then when you start digging a little bit more, it's not there yet. It's not there yet. It has to be accompanied by your own PC, because that's Linux based. So it's not going to be for everyone. Although there are a lot of students, a lot of analysts around the globe that could definitely use that device. It's also not the cheapest one out there. But then again, Nvidia GPUs haven't been cheap either in the last couple of years. So yeah, it was quite interesting. Cosmos was interesting as well. Me with Nvidia, although I'm not an investor because I'm stupid, but I've always been very, very interested. From the first time they mentioned it, it was Omniverse. Everything that had to do with Omniverse to me was just, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's a no-brainer. It's easy. I mean, easy to scale up. Um, lots of companies are going to just catch on to that, use their system, use their data sets. And yeah, every time they talk about that, they talk about digital twins, avatars, and all that ecosystem, NIMS. It's yeah, it makes you think. It makes you think how far this thing will go, and still how early we are right now, right? Because we've been talking about this for a while, so maybe we think, oh, we're already near the peak. But when you actually look at things, when we look at our day-to-day lives, actually, it's we're not that much further than we were a year, 2 years ago. Yeah,
Mhm.
we now have LLMs here and there, but technically speaking, I still don't have a robot here. I don't have a digital avatar or anything like that. Yeah, so we're still quite early, especially in the commercial adoption, let's say.
I agree, Neil. I think I'm gonna be finally happy, and I'm gonna just once we have a robot that can cook for me, I think that would be the greatest thing ever.
Cook, clean, uh, fold the sheets. That's the worst.
So Neil, yeah, definitely. I mean, yesterday we got hit with some more regulations for the AI market. And this is something that I think we've kind of seen coming. I think a lot of articles and a lot of news presses have kind of rumored that this was going to happen
Hmm.
sooner than later. So it does seem like the market was prepared. And excuse me, of course, when I'm doing live stream, everybody decides to do something outside. So I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but Nvidia stock reaction to me yesterday, it wasn't down as much. I mean, I think the market to somewhat is expecting these regulations to not really go through. It's going to
Hmm.
take about $120 days before they actually go into effect. And it seems like the market is pricing that the Trump administration might either reverse this or change them in the whole completely route.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've said that as well. I think when we look at it, it's 120 days, could be overturned, and I don't know how it works in the US with these types of things. Maybe it can be overturned, maybe you have to pass some stuff, I don't know. But I do feel like 12 months from now, most of the exports regulations are going to be reduced. Not all of them, because there are still something that are probably very, very important for national security, but all of these companies that have been hit quite hard, ASML, Lam Research, those companies where revenue from China was over 40%, I think they will do much better because the export rules are going to basically go away. Not all of them, but most of them. That's just my prediction.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting because these regulations, the way other companies are reporting it, I mean, we saw Oracle also made like a blog report.
Hmm.
I think Microsoft, they preemptively last week announced a blog as well. And OpenAI yesterday kind of released their blueprint to economics. Funny for them to write something like that, right? But they also kind of discuss it a little bit that it seems obviously businesses are going to say these regulations are going to hurt them, and it's going to push the main thing that these companies are saying, that if regulations keep getting harder and harder or stronger, then other companies, instead of investing in AI infrastructure from American companies, they're going to go to maybe the Chinese player, which is very similar to what we saw in the telecommunication market in
Yep.
in the 2000s. And I think Microsoft, while you might agree or disagree with it, I think Microsoft did a really good job in their blog report of explaining how this has similarities to what happened in the 2000s.
Yeah, no, I agree. I understand most people that will say, oh, but they're saying this because it will hurt their business if there are export rules, etc., which is true. But then again, you would like to have a freer market, right? You would like for these American companies to be able to operate freely, not, oh, you're connected to this, you're connected to that. Sorry, we can't. So we're losing out. And it's not like the other side is standing still. We've seen the CEO of Perplexity say that some AI models out of China are actually leading, even without all of the best chips and equipments out there. So that's quite scary if they can do that without, let's say, American technology. So yeah, it's not like, oh, the export rules are working. Well, technically, they're not really working, because if that were the case, well, China would have been behind by quite a lot.
Yeah, and these regulations, some of the things that they also discussed is, if you are a cloud provider, you also can only have certain percentage of your compute power out of the United States, which obviously in a top level overview right now, it seems amazing for the United States market. But if these companies that are in theory could benefit from this are still kind of fighting, I think there's obviously both in any discussion, there's always there's always two different stories, and both could be right, and there has to be somewhat of a middle. So I'm pretty sure eventually we're going to get to that middle, but it's going to create a nice amount of volatility, at least here in the AI space, for either big tech players and especially for chip companies like Nvidia.
Yeah, no, for sure. Plus, there are also the Nvidia, the heating issues, the delays that we've seen, all of those reports in the last couple of months. I mean, it's quite strange, because we've seen that with other companies as well, with AMD, for example. Suddenly, price target reductions, even though the price of the stock has come down already since April of last year, but only now are we seeing some price target reductions. We've seen some person from AWS saying that we're not seeing enough demand for AMD chips. All of these articles coming out in my opinion, I mean, the timing is quite strange, won't you say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, information, I don't know, I feel like it's always deja vu. I've always read that same article about the overheating issue. um I think one of the big things, Neil, is in the engineering world, and whenever developing something, there's always something that goes wrong.
Hmm.
And usually we don't really care about it, because at the end of the day, it gets fixed. Engineers and whoever the technicians, whoever fix it. But I think right now the main issue with Nvidia is it's so important that any minor issues is creating is a great article, a great YouTube video, a great everything, right? As content creators, we know, right, when what would drive clicks and what would drive views. And I think obviously other news places find that, and because now Nvidia is so popular, any minor hiccup can be seen as something huge that is, I want to say, not that tends to happen a lot in these kind of technology world. So
Hmm.
I really want to about the overheating issues. I even saw that a company, I forget, HSBC, who just reduced their price target of Nvidia, Neo. Even with the reduction, their guidance for fiscal year of 2026, which is calendar year of 2025 for
Hmm.
Nvidia, is still higher than most analysts' expectations. So I think that's still wild.
Yeah, yeah. No, when I see these types of things, I also saw that with Tesla this weekend. There's an analyst that changed the rating, but the price target is higher than the price we're at today. So it went from buy to neutral, but the price target was 495, and we're at $400 right now. So how does that make any sense? I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't, and like you said, sometimes when we talk about names like Nvidia, like Tesla, it's more about let's generate some clicks, let's generate some noise, and then we'll see what happens, which is a shame. But then again, I guess that's how things work in the media.
Yeah, and then anything else in NVIDIA? Any questions here we might have before maybe we move on to the next topics, which might be AMD, right, Neil? But let's see if we have any questions here coming in our chat for NVIDIA before we move on to another topic.
Yeah, I think I've seen earlier on probably about price targets for Nvidia. I mean, to be honest, remember we were at $90 back in August. That was quite something.
Yeah, and I believe Nvidia is one of those stocks that is great for the patient investors. I say that a lot in my videos, where because it's so volatile, and because it's so viewed on by so many different places, any negative news can give us some great short buying opportunities. So I think for patient investors, Nvidia is definitely for that, where you can wait out, where we're gonna get some great price actions that come out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Nvidia proves, not just Nvidia, but specifically them, since they're up so much in the last couple of years, that higher can go higher, bigger can become much bigger.
All right, Neil. So I didn't read it completely. I don't know if you saw, I think we got a new price target on AMD. Are you an AMD shareholder, Neil?
No, I'm a shareholder of you know who. I'm a shareholder of the blue company. I'm a shareholder of Intel, but I think Intel will be a discussion for maybe tomorrow, actually. Yeah, because that's something. Don't forget. This week we do Tuesday, Wednesday, right? Or is it still Thursday?
Yeah. I think this week is the only week. Just for viewers, I am in Florida for a month or so, and we're doing some things with the family tomorrow. So, but normally we're going to be doing Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then hopefully expand from there.
Yeah. So no, I don't currently own AMD. I own Intel and Micron. Actually, Micron is a much newer company that I have in my portfolio. But yeah, I think Intel and Micron might be a discussion for another time, because I think we can talk about those two companies for a long time. But AMD, no, I don't own it today. I owned it a couple of years ago. I bought it at 22, 24, sold it at 64, which is still fine, but could have done much better if I kept on holding it. But okay. But still, AMD, very, very good company. It does seem like everybody thinks it's a garbage stock right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny, right? I created kind of like this Nvidia channel on my side, and anytime I mention anything about AMD, I get all my main viewers calling me, saying I'm wrong about this. And I try to make the point, Neil, that I don't think AMD is the next Nvidia. I by no means consider that. I don't consider AMD a threat to Nvidia. But I think two things could be right. I think Nvidia can continue to dominate, but this market can also grow at such a rate that even players that aren't winning market share can still grow in market revenue, right? Because you in a market that's growing bigger and bigger, even if you lose percentage share, you can theoretically still grow in revenue as long as that market continues to grow. And I think that's what we're going to be for Nvidia, for AMD. I think in AMD you have the main bullish case is that this is the next Nvidia. Again, I don't believe that's the case, but I believe they can get the small crumbs of this AI market and still benefit. And one of my favorite things, Neil, about AMD is they are diversified. Where for Nvidia, excuse my language, you need to have balls of steel that the AI market is here. It's here. If you don't believe the AI market is here, then in theory you shouldn't be investing in Nvidia, because that's what matters for the stock, for AI to continue to innovate, for AI to continue to invest heavily, for big tech to continue to invest heavily. Because if you don't believe that's the case, then Nvidia is not gonna be this $1 trillion company that it is, $3 trillion company that it is. For AMD, I don't think you need to have that mindset. I think you could say, hey, look, the AI market could be real, but it can also benefit from CPU market. It can still benefit from the embedded market. It can still benefit from custom chip market in the gaming space, because all those revenues are still somewhat heavily impacted, that they're still double digits, a quarter of revenue, so they still matter to the
Hmm.
business, and I think that can overall help the valuation in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm pretty sure that AMD is a pretty big position for you, right?
Yeah, so it's my number two.
Mm.
Nvidia is number one with about 25, a little bit over 25. AMD is nowhere near it. It's like around 11, maybe,
Hmm.
if I remember correctly, but it's still a nice double digit percentage.
Okay, yeah, so it makes sense that you can talk about Nvidia and AMD, since you own both of them. But no, I agree with you with the part of AMD. I think a lot of people might have missed Nvidia, and so they're looking for the second best thing. But again, there is no second Nvidia. There is Nvidia, and then there is the rest. And the rest, even though AMD might sit at the number two spot, the difference between number one and number two is a couple of miles apart. And maybe now the fear is, of course, that AI revenue guidance for 2025 might not be as high as expected. And I actually did a video about AMD today talking about what you just said. AMD does have all the other sides of its business. It's true, embedded has some headwinds, gaming has been slowing down, but there still is the gaming segments, there still is embedded, there still is the client side of things that eventually will pick up. The client side probably will already pick up early on because of the refresh cycle, AI PCs, and all of that. And since, like you said, it's not like data center and gaming and automotive for Nvidia, the difference isn't that huge yet for AMD. So there is more to the business than just data center or AI revenue for AMD. But I guess I understand why the market is purely focused on that AI revenue, because, well, AMD did get a premium a couple of months ago when it was trading closer to $200, because it was so-called the challenger to Nvidia. And maybe, who knows, with the MI400 in 2026, maybe it might challenge Nvidia, remains to be seen. But I think the bar has been set quite low going into this earnings report. Can it go lower? It can always go lower. But I think it's much better to be at around $115 going into this next earnings report with a lot of, let's go, unknowns, than going into it at $200 or $180. Because if they do miss and you're at $180, then yeah, you're going to get hit quite hard. With a, let's say, small AI revenue miss in guidance, maybe the explanation during the earnings call might be good enough to keep the stock above 100, 110 or so.
Yeah, yeah, and Neil, I think that's the biggest bearish flag for AMD right now, is their demand for the MI300 and MI325 is not going to be high. And I think maybe this year might be weak for AMD because of that. It's all about the AI market. And I don't know if you, Neil, or maybe the viewers, there's this really great semiconductor analyst, semi analysis. They
Mm-hmm.
have a really great blog, and they actually did an article a few weeks ago
Yeah.
of how Nvidia is so much better than AMD in training workloads. And it was insane, because I hear so many AMD investors saying that, look, the software market from AMD is so close to Nvidia. But looking at that analysis, you see it's nowhere near. Like,
Yep.
there's nowhere AMD is catching into Nvidia in forms of software. The amount of resources that Nvidia gives to its engineers is insane compared to the amount of resources AMD gives to its engineers. So again, I just want to preface or just finish off by saying that I don't believe AMD is the next Nvidia, but I believe as a valuation is sitting attractive, and there's definitely a nice amount of opportunities. Um, so let's see. Are there any questions here, Neil, that I haven't really been looking, that maybe we can answer?
There is the latest one here. And by the way, I agree with you. CUDA versus ROCM, there is a huge difference. And I think that's a big focus from the SEM analysis that they did. They did talk about Lisa Su as well. And hopefully, they'll improve, because yeah, if they can improve the software side of things at AMD, I think we're going to see some accelerated growth. But then again, software issues at AMD have been going on for quite a while. So it's not always about the hardware. It's, in this case, definitely about the software.
All right, Neil. Do you have any thoughts here, Neil, on Broadcom versus Nvidia, or want me to jump in first? And do you own any of these? Do you own Broadcom? We know you already don't own Nvidia. Any thoughts on
No,
Broadcom?
I like the company very much. I should have bought at 130 when it did dip a couple of months ago, but can't buy them all, right? You can't buy them all, but I think Broadcom is very well positioned. It's not the same as Nvidia and AMD and all of those players, because Broadcom can benefit from multiple trends. And again, with the acquisition of VMware, it wasn't a cheap one, but they've been buying very, very intelligently over the last decade. And it's probably one of the only companies that can make that many acquisitions, big ones as well, and actually be successful, right? It's a tremendous business, tremendous leadership. And yeah, to say Broadcom or Nvidia, I don't know. It's different types of companies, right?
Yeah, definitely for sure. I mean, I agree, Neil. When I first heard of Broadcom going to purchase VMware, I'm like, yo, this is a huge company that they're buying. Like, and the synergies that they're done are really great. I think right now the market is getting a little too excited about ASIC solutions. I do believe there's a growth opportunity for ASIC, as we have all big tech players developing their own AI
Hmm.
chips. Their biggest customer for Broadcom is Google, and let me say, if I was to bet for one, if I was to bet for one cloud server provider to dominate the market, I think it would be Google, Neil, because of how well they are at not only building chips, but they were one of the first to really kind of do stuff with the AI market. With I forget what was their kind of transformer that they used. The name is leaving me, but they were also one to really be good at building systems, like to be able to put their ASICs into these massive supercomputers and build the huge rack systems. I don't think anyone does it as good as Google. So I really do enjoy them. For Broadcom, though, they have a lot of growth opportunities, right? They have their optics, then they have the ASIC market. But I think the ASIC market is getting a little too overexcited. At the end of the day, Neil, there's really nothing stopping Nvidia or AMD to saying, hey, look, you guys are playing in the ASIC field. We can actually play in this field too if we wanted to. But I think Broadcom and all these other players playing in the ASIC field can't really enter the AI GPU market as easily as what I mentioned, AMD and Nvidia
Hmm.
doing with the ASIC space.
Yeah. Before saying what I want to say, what do you think about SMCI?
To me, it's at this current state, Neil. It's a gamble, right? This is a stock that, if you're talking about in a stock price point, it's a stock that's going to move on any news with its press release and its
Hmm.
regulations and its thing, whatever releases. So to me, it's a gamble for now until we really get those final answers. And right now, if you're buying into SMCI, you're buying in hopings that everything goes well with all their releases and financial data.
Yeah, no, I agree. Which they still have just over a month to do so, so they're cutting it quite close. But I'd want to touch real quick on ARM, because I've seen a report that ARM might actually start, going into markets that their clients are in. And you said it with Broadcom and Nvidia and AMD hurting Broadcom's business. What are the chances that ARM might start competing with its own customers?
Oh man, I haven't read those. I've only like seen the headlines from those, Neil. I really don't haven't read the reports, but in my opinion, I, I think it would just be bad taste for ARM to really enter into this space. I think it would make more sense for ARM to, if they are developing, sometimes there's truth to this, right? Sometimes
Hmm.
they might just be developing their own stuff just for research and development to kind of increase the overall IP portfolio. I think that's what might be happening. And I would be hopeful. I'm not an ARM shareholder, but I would be hopeful that's the way they're going to go, because then they can even charge maybe even um, more money, more royalties, more licensing fees as they continue to increase their research and development. The other thing is, I know ARM has kind of this complete compute system stack where they already kind of have a lot of the built-in chips for you. So I wonder if it's also part of that system as well. If I was an ARM investor, I really wouldn't want them to enter in their own market. into developing their own chips and consuming it, because I think that would definitely be bad taste for a lot of their customers.
Yeah, I'm actually, to be honest, just from a stocks perspective, I'm very surprised that it's holding up that well at
I
$140 or
agree.
so at a super sky high valuation. It's an extremely important player in the semiconductor industry, huge margins and all. But yeah, from a valuations perspective, I'm very surprised to see it hold up that much for so long. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Touching back on the AMD topic, you've probably seen this. Thoughts on AMD holding the specs out there for their GPU at CS, basically not presenting, um, not talking about it during the presentation, basically, and burying it in the press release. Do you think it had to do with the fact that they knew what Nvidia would say and how they would price their own products?
I don't think Nvidia. I don't think I, I don't know. This one was pretty interesting. I would say maybe AMD just didn't really. Did they actually release one, Neil? Did they actually release something
In the press release, they talked about their GPUs that they did
yeah
not mention in the
in the live stream?
presentation. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen
no
them if they
pricing though. No pricing.
yeah. I don't know. I think, if I'm gonna be honest, I think AMD is definitely shifting, and they do understand that right now the market for them to continue to grow is the data center space and the CPU space. So I think they're really gonna, at least in the consumer market as well, they're really gonna focus on CPU space. I mean, with that partnership with Dell Technologies, I think that was
Hmm.
pretty interesting for them, and they'll be able to take a nice amount of market share from Intel. The GPU for them has always been a small business, either being for consumer and for data center. I think right now AMD is probably focusing first on server CPUs, then maybe on AI accelerators, then on client CPUs, and then whenever it has time, it'll have a team focused on consumer GPUs. But I don't think, I think Nvidia is going to continue to dominate in that space.
Yeah, maybe you should work for their PR department. From what I've seen is that they said they only had 5 minutes to dedicate to that segment, and since it's such an important segment, they did not want to just talk about it for 5 minutes, and they did not want to erase anything else from the presentation. So that's why it was not in the presentation live and only in the press release. Okay, I don't buy it,
Neil,
but
I I have this question. If you can pull up, it was came out around 12:30, 12. Where was it? Around 12:33. It was from Sanjay. What has more potential, Nvidia at 130 or AMD at 115? And
hmm,
obviously, I was reading this question, so I have some thoughts. I don't know if I'll push it off to you after, but I think, Neil, this really depends on the investor themselves. If you truly believe that AI is here, if you believe that this is just the early innings of AI market and that AI investments is going to continue at some crazy high levels, then I think Nvidia has more potential. If you're an investor that can't sleep at night because you don't know if tomorrow Meta is going to change their minds of how much they're going to spend, of how much they're going to, or Microsoft, how much they're going to spend on AI chips, then I don't think Nvidia is the one for you. Then maybe AMD might be a better play. So at the end of the day, it all depends on your bullish thesis and where you see where that market is headed. So I mean, Nvidia is still my number one player, and I think I like both. I like both.
yeah, liking both is definitely the easy solution. Um, I'm sure when people look at it, it's like Nvidia is already a $3.3 trillion company, AMD $190 billion company. So who's more likely to, let's say, 10x? Because 10x, I don't know. Nowadays, it's like the benchmark. If you don't 10x, we're not interested, which is quite strange. But from an upside perspective, it's true that maybe AMD could outperform Nvidia this year because the sentiment is just so bad for AMD. From a long-term perspective, for AMD to reach $1 trillion in market cap, there has to be a lot going for them. For Nvidia to stay above 3 trillion, I mean, it shouldn't really be that difficult for them, unless, of course, there's suddenly no interest anymore in AI. But
Hmm.
I don't think that's going to happen
Yeah.
anytime soon. So yeah, owning both of them is definitely the solution. And then if you really want to pick, eh, I don't know, I can't even answer that, to be honest. But buy Intel. That's the that's the
Yeah.
contrarian trade.
I definitely want to take a deep dive on your Intel thoughts. Like I think that should be tomorrow's topic for sure, Neil. I definitely would love to hear, because while I'm not an investor of Intel, it's definitely one I keep a close eye on as well.
Yeah, I mean, especially what is it today for still under $19? It's like it's priced so close to book value, which basically means, well, the market thinks it's going to go bankrupt, which, let's be honest, is it's quite strange. Even if they were to spin off, right, the foundry business. Without the foundry business, this is a very much profitable company from the client side of things. So yeah, it's sentiment. It's sentiment. I think they'll beat their own guidance quite comfortably because the bar has been set so low, and then it's all about 18A later this year. But we'll talk about that in another episode, which will be tomorrow. Let's
Then
see if I can find. Did you find another?
I don't know. I mean, lately we have been getting, and I'm getting some here on my chat. I don't know if you're getting some about quantum computing.
Yes.
I mean, I've actually done. I think you've done a few videos too, Neil. I think I've done 2 videos on quantum computing. Actually, a few. But in actual quantum computing, one of my favorite ones that I did, Neil, is I went to different videos made by Google, by Nvidia, and other big tech players, where each of those engineers actually said that, hey, look, engineers working there actually said, hey, look, quantum computing is definitely not here anytime soon. So I think there's a difference between, does quantum computing already have use cases right now? And it does seem like they do. And there's a difference between, is quantum computing able to expand to some crazy use cases that every company in the world will need right now? And I don't think we're there yet. While there are companies that I believe are using them for specialized workloads or specialized things, I don't think this is a market I'm gonna want to invest anytime soon. And there's so many fears that, and Nvidia and Jensen kind of are fearful of quantum computing. Again, I wouldn't buy that. I wouldn't. I would completely disagree with that.
Yeah, I had the day after that, I had a couple of comments saying that they should sue they should sue Jensen because how dare he speak about quantum, right? It's like he's not allowed to speak about quantum computing, which again, if you think it's because of Jensen that these stocks have come down, then you have not been paying attention. These stocks should not have been valued anywhere close to where they were a couple of days ago. Even today, most of them are like 200, 300 times next 12 months sales. It just doesn't make any sense. Even if you believe quantum computing is the future, it's going to be a couple of years out. Are you willing to pay that many years out today?
Yeah.
Doesn't make much sense. And yeah, from my first video about these stocks and these companies, I said, look, I have Google. I think Google, if quantum becomes a real thing, I think Google will be a huge winner. I have Intel. They have a computing segment inside their business as well. Yeah. And then, yeah, if you want to bet, okay, fine. I mean, congrats to everyone that did buy the Rigettis at $1 or less.
Yeah.
You've 10x, 20x your money just like that. But yeah, it was quite funny to see all the Jensen hate because he told his truth or the truth. But let's be honest, I think since I was in high school, which was over 10 years ago, I've been here about quantum computing. So it's nothing new. It's been something a lot of people have been talking about for a long time. And yet here we are, 2025, still, let's call it nothing.
Yeah. So Neil, we got a pretty cool question. Oh, well, not pretty typical question here from Ernest. I know you mentioned you were owner. What is your opinion on Micron technology?
So Micron, to me, what was pretty simple. Stock is down a lot. The company will play a huge role in AI, in data centers. Memory is going to be a huge thing. I mean, they're going to be needing way more memory per. I mean, Blackwell already has how much right now? A couple of times more than their first.
And Hopper, yes. And then Hopper, way more, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just Blackwell. It's going to be probably a bit more with Rubin, and it's not just Nvidia. It's going to be AMD and all the rest as well. When we look at everything that's AI is going to touch, robots, autonomous vehicles, your phone, your computer, you're going to need way more memory. It's true, the leader right now, SK Hynix, no doubt about that. But like you said previously, if the market grows quite quickly, and you as a company, and I expect actually Micron to take market share, especially since Samsung is struggling, the market for Micron becomes bigger and bigger. Their piece of the pie becomes bigger and bigger. And it's true, memory used to be a cyclical business. I think with HBM, it might be also a cyclical business, but I think the cycle will just be way longer than what it was before, and the top will be just much higher than the previous top. HBM, what did they say? The memory market's expected to reach $100 billion or so in 2030 or something like that, which is quite big compared to where we are today.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, one of my favorite. I don't own Micron, Neil, but it's one I am very bullish on. With the full. When you talk about it, we can't buy it for some time, and that actually prevented me from buying Micron. But for me, the bullish case for Micron is, you mentioned it well, that this is a market that has been very cyclical in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it has been very cyclical in the past, Neil, is because in theory, you don't really need the most advanced type of memory for consumer products, right? So when you don't need the best consumer memory for consumer products, it allows what I call like the C student in memory market, the D student, to be able to get market share, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you don't need that mentality. But now with HBM, only those that I would consider the A plus students can really play in this space. So now, because only A plus students are able to play in this space, you have less competition. You have the ability to have higher margins. The great thing is, with this HBM, you have that 3-to-1 trade-off ratio with typical DRAM. So
Mm-hmm.
you're even able to improve your supply and demand. You have better supply and demand dynamics than usual as well. And I'm bullish in Micron, as even though I don't own, as long as they continue to innovate in the HBM space. Because when you stop innovating in the HBM space, those prior HBM memories like HBM2 enters the commodity space again, where even the D and the C player can enter. So Micron is doing really well. Like you mentioned, Samsung is lagging. I don't know what's going on with Samsung right now. SK Hynix is the big though, but it does seem like Micron will be able to continue to take market share, and they are innovating at the great levels that will allow them to eliminate a little bit of the cyclicality, which is what you mentioned, Neil.
Yeah, and I mean, it was great to hear Jensen mention Micron specifically for the G7 memory at CS. Offered a nice little pump in the stock price, although I think it's still around under $100 right now. So yeah, it's true also that this is quite funny, because when I cover Micron, I'm like, yeah, they missed revenue for next quarter by $1 billion, right? Which was quite a big miss. And then I get a comment every single time, the same guy. It's, how can you say they missed when the 2030 expectations is XYZ? I'm like, what do you mean? They missed. The expected number was 8.9. They came in at 7.9, which is a huge miss. I don't care if 10 years from now, 5 years from now, the number might be much bigger. Right now, for Wall Street, the number was a huge miss, which, to be honest, did surprise me a little bit to see such a big miss. But then again, there are some things that they cannot control, which I can understand, as long as the roadmap HBM4, HBM4E is still intact. I think we should be good to go. Plus, like you said, it becomes not a commodity. It becomes something extremely important that a select few can play in. Which I believe Micron is going to be a big winner.
Yeah. Neil, I like this really cool question from Kiran. It came out at 12:43. Let's see if you can pull it up. Is, with all semis, should we give more weight to PE or forward PE ratios? I'm going to share my thoughts first. It was around 12:43.
Yeah.
And the reason I think it's every investor has different thought process on what metrics they should use. For the semiconductor market, I think you have to understand where you are in the cycle, right, Neil? Because at the end of the day, this is still a cyclical space. It might not be. It's a cycle that I believe is always on an uptrend, though, right? It tends to be like the new bottom is higher than the last bottom.
Yeah.
So that's what I do like. And I think right now, one of the reasons Micron actually missed earning is because the consumer market is still pretty weak.
Hmm.
So if I'm looking at a semiconductor company in the consumer space, because I know it's still in the bottom ends of its cycle, I would enjoy looking at forward PE ratios. Now, if I believe the market is on the higher end and it's maybe closer to the top than it is to the bottom, then I would be a little more hesitant of looking at forward PE ratios. And I actually don't know what metric I might look at, but I think when it's at the top, looking at forward PE ratio is more just like confirmation bias that you're looking, oh, look, this stock is doing really good. It's going to continue to look really
Yep.
good. I think it's more important to understand where we might be in the cycle instead.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's which will lead us into ASML very nicely actually, because it's much better, especially with these types of companies, to they have to be strong companies, of course, to buy when margins are compressed, when earnings is down a lot. It's much better to enter these types of stocks and companies when that happens, and not when you have peak margins, you have peak earnings, peak net bookings, and all of that, because then, well, then we don't really know how much more upside we have in that cycle. When you are already much lower, we don't know when the bottom will be, but at least there is that margin of, let's call it, safety, that we are far away from the previous peak and the company will still be doing well in the future. So buying it at lower, well, compressed margin, lower earnings, still a very, very good business, good management, makes much more sense, which leads me, of course, into ASML. Um, I don't own SML. I don't know if you own it. Um, but ASML is also one of those types of companies where stock got hit, makes sense. Net bookings came down. They told us that the recovery in 2025 is not going to happen as fast as previously expected. But since it's ASML, since it's still, let's call it, a monopoly, I think now, same with other equipment makers, I think that could be a very, very good opportunity. Like the Lam Research, the Applied Materials, and all of that, I think are also very, very good options. So yeah, would love to hear your thoughts, and maybe if someone has a question, they could add that to the chat.
Yeah, definitely, Neil. Very similar to you, Neil. I do believe the semiconductor equipment market is right now undervalued. This is one of the markets I'm pretty excited about. I want to say one of the great things about being an investor is the money, at least on my personal life, is the money I put in here in my portfolio is money I really don't care about anytime
Hmm.
soon. So I don't know if 2025 is going to be the year of semiconductor equipment players, but I do believe there's tailwinds in this space. I believe in the next, either this year or next year, we are going to see some great price reactions on this stock. So for me, this is the time when I'm accumulating shares in the semiconductor equipment space. I don't ASML is actually one of the few I don't buy. I have
Hmm.
my own reasons for that, but I still believe the bullish sentiment is there for this whole market, even ASML. And I believe this is a boring industry that is going to be pretty exciting for the upcoming years, because you have the tailwinds right now of individual countries building their own chips, wanting to build their own chips. So you have a lot more manufacturing plants being built. You also have the eventual tailwind of the consumer space picking back up. So you're going to need more. You're going to have more strain on the supply chain on their manufacturing lines, so you're going to need more equipment. Advanced packaging is still very, very small, and we're seeing TSMC and all these other players invest in things like advanced packaging. And you also have this new manufacturing phase, as we go below 2 nanometers in chip manufacturing,
Yeah.
that is going to kind of push a refresh cycle, to say the least, on the equipment space. So I see a lot of tailwinds. Now, I don't have the crystal ball to tell me when that's going to happen. So right now, I'm just gladly accumulating while maybe the stocks continue to get hit.
Any specific names you are targeting?
In forms of the big, maybe the reason I don't like I don't buy ASML is because it's already a big player.
Hmm.
I like Lam Research a lot, Neil.
Yeah.
It does things in the etching space. It also has a lot of customer relations with the memory market, which I'm
Hmm.
bullish in right now. So in the big caps, Lam Research. Then I do own a lot in the smaller caps. Let's not say smaller caps, 10 billions and below. Onto, which is great for
Yeah.
metrology. You also have Camtech there. Bessie Semiconductor. A lot of those stocks that are in that $10 billion, I believe, can benefit dramatically from advanced packaging, from metrology, and just all these advancements we're seeing in this industry.
Okay, no, makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, Lam is the one that if I would open a position, it's probably Lam or ASML because I mean they're growing still quite respectably. Forward PE in this case, there's a forward PE is still what in the 20s, low 20s, pays I think a small dividend. So yeah, it's one of those quality names that should definitely be on the list if you're looking for these types of semiconductor players, for sure.
Yeah, and Greg here, one that I really do enjoy, but this one is a very small company. It's below $1 billion. It just took a hit. Is Air Test
Yeah, I saw.
Systems. Air Test System. One There's two markets, Neil, that I'm very bullish on in the semiconductor space in forms of where the valuation is right now and where there's growth potential. The first one, like I mentioned, Neil, was the semiconductor equipment space. The second is companies that deal with the automotive market, because right now we're still very weak in the automotive space. But the chips that are used in automotive can also be used in other things, like those power solutions can be used in AI servers. They can be used in robotics if we start to kind of move into those robotics market. So Air Test System is one that provides kind of testing equipments for that industry or chips used in that industry. Right now, their core value, their core revenue is down because the automotive market is down. So again, I don't know when this would turn around, but I see so much tailwind in this space that I don't mind sitting in dead money right now as I accumulate shares, and then eventually I get to see, I'm happy I bought at those levels, even though it was quiet for some time.
Yeah, I see. It's a company. I mean, I know about the company. I didn't know the market cap was so low. It's under $500 million. It has a quite high short interest. I see here, 21%, which is quite interesting for a semiconductor player. But yeah, definitely, sometimes it's worth being a bag holder to then have multiple bags of gold. Makes total sense. Makes total sense. Um, there is Ryu Oliveira here with the question Qualcomm or Marvell. I know we talked a year ago, we talked about Oracle being a very good play that's going under the radar. You then talked about Marvell, and Marvell has been going under the radar for a long time and then suddenly popped up. Um, Qualcomm is another company with, I think, insane strength, although they have seen some weakness as well. They won a lawsuit against ARM more recently. Um, so to me, it's again two different types of companies: Marvell, Qualcomm, more, let's call it customer centric, more, yeah, I would call it customer centric. Marvell, not so much, which is an advantage, let's say, because they don't really care. I mean, they care, but they care less if you buy this phone or that phone. That's not really their business. Two very, very strong businesses. So yeah, again, if I had to choose, me personally, I'll probably go with Qualcomm, but that's just because I like the company, I like the businesses inside of Qualcomm. Um, but I'm sure you will probably pick Marvell if I'm correct.
I do like Marvell in long term of things, but I don't know which one I would choose between the two right now, Neo. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think the ASIC market is getting a little too overexcited, which I personally am not adding new money to Marvell.
Hmm.
And if I had Broadcom, the same story. I wouldn't add new money to the ASIC market, as I believe we're pricing in a lot of kind of growth right now. Obviously, for those players, you have kind of the networking solutions that are very important, the optic solutions that go in all these data centers, which can benefit from them. Qualcomm, I don't know why, just it's a great value. I believe it's trading at pretty great PE ratios, but I don't know there's nothing that really excites me for Qualcomm though, right? It's I guess the only thing that could really excite me for Qualcomm is Internet of Things as AI becomes more crucial. In it Once AI is actually something that everything uses, that I think Qualcomm can definitely benefit from that
Hmm.
because they have a lot of great chips that go into the mobility space, into the Internet of Things industry. So there's that growth opportunity, but I don't know why, Neil. It just has never really, nothing at the moment really screams out for me for Qualcomm, which is
Yeah,
okay, right? Boring companies are great investments. Those tend to be the ones that are sometimes some of the best.
yeah, I agree. Do you think they will challenge Intel and AMD in the PC market?
I don't think so. At least not in this year or next year for sure. I mean, it's just like anything. You need to have a software base behind it, and in the PC market, to say the least, I don't think you see too much um, in the ARM in that ARM ecosystem too much outside of just Apple, right? Apple has done it really well, but that's because they control everything. The Windows PC, you have so many different players, and I don't think they'll compete too much as they're hoping to.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like the position that they're in, like you said, automotive, Internet of Things, AR, VR, smartphones, and all of that. I think is especially AR, VR. I think that's going to be quite big in the future, and I think they're well positioned uh, with that. But then again, there are many companies. Not every company you should buy or own. Um, I mean, if you want exposure to AR, VR, me personally, I'm exposed through Meta. Who knew that Meta would go and get you exposure into AR, VR? But yeah, we talk a lot about semiconductors. We do not own all of them because then again, can't buy. It's not like a Pokemon game, can't catch them all. But definitely good companies out there. Some opportunities as well, especially because of the uncertainty that we're in right now. Supply chain issues still, geopolitics, rules, blah blah blah. So there are definitely, especially in the semiconductor industry, definitely some opportunities out there. I know we said this is going to be a semiconductor talk, but are there any companies outside of the semiconductor industry that you're looking at right now?
And for future episodes, yeah, I mean, I'll be glad. I enjoy talking about anything tech, companies like Meta, companies, Microsoft, the cloud space. There are a few software companies that I follow as well, Autodesk, Unity, for
Hmm.
example. So, what gets me excited, well, I'm proud to have some knowledge in the semiconductor space. It allows me to see the top level and kind of trickle down to see some of the use cases. So, in these episodes, obviously, we can talk a lot about semiconductors. I can board the viewers with that. But if we want to take it other directions, and if the viewers have questions on other topics, feel free to let us know as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. I didn't know you were so interested in Unity. I didn't even know anybody was still interested in Unity after the continuous struggles and underperformance and management changes and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, it got quiet for me. It's actually a nice position in my cost basis. I don't know right now how well it is, um, but it's one that I decided to hold off and see where the new management is taking off. I kind of had a quiet period on it, and now it's starting to grab my attention again. So we'll see where we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Before we close off, I have this. Yep, that's actually the question
Hmm.
I was gonna say.
I
Great.
can read your mind.
um, Feel free to jump in first here, Neil.
Currently, I have actually more cash than I usually have. I have closer to 15% in cash. Maybe now maybe a little bit less, maybe 13, I would say around 13%, which is because I started taking profits in Tesla. I sold out of Palantir, believe it or not, at around $70, which was not a popular thing to do, but then again, it just makes sense for me. And so that's why the cash position right now is quite higher than previously, which is great because it allowed me to buy new companies like Micron, like Uber, and stuff like that, and add to others. I did also add to my Chinese stocks because I do think that's a contrarian trade for this year. So far, of course, in traditional Chinese fashion, I'm still down on that position, but yeah, it's around 13% cash right now.
Yeah, Neil, I don't know the actual percentage. I'm gonna say it's at least 10% right now, and very similar, Neil. It's a lot higher than it normally was. I sold off some winners, not Nvidia or any of my semiconductor companies. I There were a lot of other companies that I had that were also involved in the AI space and that
Hmm.
all jumped up. And it's not that I was bearish in them, but I just felt like my volatility will be so high since Nvidia is such a big position in my overall portfolio already that, hey, look, I don't want to sell Nvidia because I believe this can benefit. So let me just at least take some revenue, some wins on some of the other plays that I feel could probably move in the same direction as Nvidia. So I saw a small position, like some of my positions in Tesla and Palantirs, but I still own them, but just kind of profit taking on them
Yeah.
because I'm more worried of how the volatility could affect them, especially with Nvidia being such a big player.
Yeah, no, it's understandable. It's smart. It's taking profit. Nobody loses money by taking profits. Plus, you then
Mhm.
have cash to buy dips or
Mhm.
crashes whenever they occur. So
Mhm.
that makes total sense. Hopefully, that answers that question.
Yeah.
Um, if you've seen something else, let me just scroll through before we end. Um,
And actually, this was pretty fun, Neil. I mean, I last in December I tried doing these live streams,
mhm.
and doing it solo is pretty boring, Neil. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty boring.
Yeah, I did one close to 5 hours. I think it was Thanksgiving. It was like a Thanksgiving special. Couldn't talk anymore about after that. I mean, it's fun once or twice talking with chat all the time, but when you have when you have a co-host, it's so much better. It's so much easier as well. I mean, 1 hour just flew by. Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, we're definitely very excited to bring this show live in 2025. It's been something we've been talking about for quite a long
That's been
time,
for a
actually.
while.
Um, but yeah, this year we're going to take it a little bit more seriously. So yeah, do share feedback in the comment section. Maybe we'll do both of us a community post about maybe
Mhm.
sectors and company specifics that people want to hear about in future episodes. I know I've seen lots of Ubers, lots of new holdings and other stocks that are not semiconductors. So we're for sure going to
Yeah,
touch
Uber's
on
actually
that.
one of my new positions too, so I wouldn't mind talking about that.
Which one?
Uber.
Uber. Yeah.
Yeah.
You told me. Yeah, me too. Actually, me too. Hopefully, we get some free Uber rides for saving their asses. um, okay. Now, if
All right.
anybody has anything to say, now is the time. If not, forever be silent. um,
Until tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll be back on, right, Neil? I think same time tomorrow, 12 to
yep.
1. And just for those that might have missed it, I think we're doing at least 2 times a week. Neil, I'm gonna say it was pretty fun. So I'm actually excited to probably expand this more. I am in Florida for a month, so I really would want to keep it for 2 times a week. But I think once I go back home, I think we can definitely expand this even further.
Yeah, no, for sure. All the links are in the description. Jose's channel, newsletter, all the links are affiliate links and all of that, or in the description. And sometimes you might even find them flying around just like this at the bottom of the screen. But all of them will be in the description, so that will be much easier for everyone. So yeah,
And
thank you all for joining the first episode, and I guess we'll see you tomorrow